Welcome to Fictionary. I'm your host, Deitra, and today we have a special episode for you. If you listened to last week's episode, you know that today we have our very first guest interview. To give you guys an ears up, our guest and I do not live close enough to do the interview in person, so this was done using Zoom. The audio is pretty good, but you will notice the difference when the interview actually starts. Anyway, I don't want to waste any more time. I'm going to go ahead and get right into this. I'm so happy to introduce our guest to you today. She is a woman who wears many hats. She is an author, an artist, a wife and mother, and a lover of Korean dramas and love triangles. She also happens to be my sister. Today, we are speaking with Chantae Oliver, the author of the Dream Weaver trilogy. The first two books are out, and the third book is currently in the editing process, which I am so excited for, guys. I cannot wait for the final book. Anyway, Chantae is a self-published author, and she's also released a children's book called Now I Know My Fae-Fiction. She's always working on something new and creative, so I'm really excited to sit down and talk with her. I know she's going to have some pointers and some tips that are going to really help us all out. So we're going to go ahead and jump in on this interview. You guys enjoy. Hi, Chantae, and welcome to Fictionary. I'm so excited to be able to interview you today.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
So I thought it would be fun to do this interview in a quick format, kind of like 20 questions. So I'm going to ask you a string of questions, and then you will respond with the first answer that comes to mind. And I don't want you to overthink your answer, okay?
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
All right. So what is the first book that made you cry?
Probably Charlotte's Web.
Ooh, that's a good one. Does writing energize or exhaust you?
Both.
Okay. What is your writing kryptonite?
Procrastination.
Have you ever gotten reader's block?
Yes, I'm currently in it.
Do you try more to be original or to deliver to readers what they want?
Original. Maybe both, because I write towards what I would want to read, which might resonate with other readers.
Okay, so you write like you're the reader.
Yes.
Cool. Do you think someone could be a writer if they don't feel emotions strongly?
Yes.
If you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
Write down everything, every dream, every moment, write it down and keep it.
How did publishing your first book change your process of writing?
It made it seem more fruitful.
What was the best money you ever spent as a writer?
Just to clarify, do you mean that helped my writing?
Yes.
Probably Grammarly subscription.
What was an early experience where you learned that language had power?
My English teacher made me the editor-in-chief of the newspaper, and that was the first time I had someone who really spoke to me about how my writing impacted them.
How many unpublished or half-finished books do you have?
So many. Not completed, but book ideas.
What does literary success look like to you?
Writing all the books that I want to write and finishing them.
What's the best way to market your books?
Word of mouth.
And how many hours a day do you write?
It can go from 0 to 20. Depends on if that motor gets running.
How do you select the names of your characters?
Sometimes I look up the meanings behind names and see if it fits the character type that I have in mind. And one character was won through a contest, and her name is Deitra.
Yay! That's me, guys. It's me. What was your hardest scene to write?
In my most recent book, which I just finished the first draft of, I pretty much every single scene I was sobbing because it's the final book of this series and it feels like a goodbye to these characters and this world that I've built. So every scene I was like a mess. My husband had to come check on me a couple times because I was sobbing so loudly.
Well, it's always hard to say goodbye. I know I'm sad to say goodbye to these characters because I have fallen in love with the world that you created. Does your family support your career as a writer?
Absolutely. My husband and my extended family, my sister, everybody. Yes, they're very supportive.
How long on average does it take you to write a book?
Oof. My first book took the longest. And I feel like that's probably true for everybody. It's almost like getting out of the gate is hard. And that one took at least 3 years because it was my first time actually taking an idea from beginning to end and trying to complete it and bring it to fruition. So that took a long time. And, you know, I was also pregnant and in college. So it was a lot going on. But yeah, after that, you kind of get a groove and you get your own system in place. So not that it becomes easier, but you have more of a system.
Do you believe in writer's block?
Absolutely. Yeah, but you just have to write through it, even if it seems like trash as you're writing it, honestly.
So you just keep writing?
Yeah.
Even if you don't. Okay. Why did you choose the avenue of self-publishing?
I really enjoy the control that you have over your creative vision when you sign over your book to a publishing company. You have a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And I didn't want that, especially coming out the gate. I wanted to establish myself with my own voice. But I do think moving forward with my future series, I might look towards traditional publishing.
Cool. So those were all the questions that I had for you. Is there anything that you want to share about your work or about the writing process, or any words of encouragement for writers out there that are trying to get that, like you said, that motor started on that first book?
I would say just write it and have a group of people in your corner who you trust to send your first draft to. So that was really what helped me, because sometimes you just have to write the chapter. Sometimes you might have an idea for what you want the chapter to say and the emotions you want to evoke, but your brain is just not connecting with your fingertips and it's not coming out how you want it. So just get through it. Just write it as simplistically as you can and get that chapter written, then move on to the next one. And then when you get it to your beta readers or even your first reader who you're like trusting to put it in their hands and be like, please help me, which is currently what's going on with my husband with my third book, because I read in a way, I write in the same way that I read, which is to say that I'm the type to skip the details. I know it's horrible, but I like to read and get to the action. So that's how I write. And that is reflected, especially in this book, because it's the third book. It's the final of the series. So there's so much happening. And I just kind of bam, 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 like, you know, straight out the gate, you're getting right to the action. And I need someone like my husband who I trust to read that and to help me slow it down. And because he's the type of reader who relishes in the details and will take his time, read every single word and make sure that he's fully immersed in the world. So make sure you have trusted people in your corner who you can give your first drafts to, because it helps.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like it's important to have that balance, because I know for myself, I have a tendency to be really like floral and I love the words. But then also when I'm reading, I can be kind of lazy. Like I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I just want to know what's going to happen.
I'm literally the same way when I read. But the problem is I write the same way. I wish I had a bit more flourish, but I'm so straight to the point. I'm like, this is what happens. Isn't that what you want to know?
But then you think about it, and there's like all these different types of readers.
Exactly.
And then you also want to build your story. Like, you're creating this whole universe. So when someone's reading it, like, how you describe something is how they're starting to picture it.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that is what I am working on. And just for people who want to get started, just start. That, I know it's the hardest thing to say, but I'm sure if you are even thinking of writing a novel, or you say you just want to write a short story, I'm sure you have so many ideas. Just start writing down your ideas. That's what I do. My first book series stemmed from a dream, and it was a recurring dream that I had over the span of about, like 5 to 8 years. Like, it was a long time that I would have this recurring dream. It would show up like every 6 months or so. And I'm like, gosh, why do I keep having this dream? And not once did it cross my mind to like write it down, even though I was consistently having this dream. So finally, I had moved to California, and I met my best friend, Brittany. And she's also someone who is working towards becoming a writer. She's actually got the first draft of her book series done. And we had started on that journey together because...
Well, let me just interject here, because I want to say, if you guys are enjoying this interview, we do have an interview scheduled with Brittany coming up. So you'll get to hear from her as well.
Yes, Brittany Gathing, my BFF. Okay, so we started our journey together, and it really helped. And this is what I mean, like, surrounding yourself with people. You want to have people in your life who encourage you to go for it. Because when you're surrounded by people who are like, speak of how impossible it is and don't really put the pedal to the metal, it's hard to launch. And not to say that you should put your future in anybody else's hands, but it certainly helps to have support system around you. And, you know, we both we just went to the library together, and we're like, you know what, let's just do this. Let's just start writing, whatever it may be. And actually, in the library that I started my book series in, which was at the Beale Air Force Base Library, they have a poster up now, a signed poster of my first book. And they,
so awesome.
Yeah, and they made like a little plaque about Chantae Oliver writing her first book series there. And that to me was the most encouraging moment to see, like, wow, like, this started in this library of me and my best friend just sitting here being like, you know what, let's just write, see what comes of it. And now look, now that same library where I started out has a plaque of me, you know, eternalized there. And that's just exciting. So write down those dreams, write them down, because this dream that I kept having, I don't have that dream anymore. It stopped the second I started writing it. And now I have a book series from it.
So I'm going to ask you one more question about your writing process.
Okay.
Do you believe in the power of an outline?
Absolutely. Okay. Now let me say, so they say you're either a pantser or a planner. And a pantser is someone who just flies by the seat of their pants and writes. And then there's a planner who likes to write out everything they're going to do. When I wrote my first book, I was absolutely a pantser. There was no outline. There was no rhyme or reason. I was just writing. I learned very quickly, moving into my next series, not next series, but the next book of the series, that I needed to have some place to go. Because with the first book, it's easier to be a pantser, right? Because you're establishing everything. When you're moving into a series, it helps to have an outline because you need to have continuity. So what I wrote in book 1, I can't just forget about all of that. So having an outline and making sure that I'm continuing that story really helped. And what I've learned is moving forward, even if it is a book 1 of a series, I'm going to have an outline, because you can pants and plan. I can have my outline, my basic outline of what goals I want to reach within that story. And then as I'm writing it out, if more stuff comes up that I want to add, I can just add that and make sure I mark a detail of it. It's so important. It helps with continuity. Mm-hmm. It helps with keeping you focused, and it helps keeping a goal for you. How I do my outline, I do each chapter And then I put it on a huge pinboard inside of my office right next to where I'm writing.
I've seen it, guys. It looks like a serial killer board.
But it helps because each time I finish one of those chapters and reach one of those goals, I do a big check mark over it. And seeing that physically next to me and seeing how close I am towards the end of that goal keeps me going and keeps me motivated.
I think that's like a really good idea because I know for myself, like having something visual in front of me, like anytime I have like a countdown or a workout calendar or something like that, those check marks or like a sticker or something like that, I'm like, yeah, I did something today.
Yeah.
So, I think that's like a potty really chart. Idea. Exactly. Like we need those things, even as adults. We need those reminders like, hey, you're making progress, because it's so easy to get caught up in your head like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this. But by setting those little things in front of yourself, it gives you those reminders like, hey, you might not be complete, but at least you're taking steps towards what you want to accomplish.
Exactly.
So I think that's a really good idea. I know for myself, one thing that I struggle with, like you said, is the continuity, because I'll have like these really big ideas and I'll start writing and then I'm like, oh, dang, nabbit, I'll read back and I'm like, no, that wasn't that character's name. No, that's not. So I think like outlining would probably be a good thing for me, but I definitely am a pantser at this point in life.
Well, even next to my outline, I have a character board. So my character board, especially because I am writing a series, has been the same from book one. So basically, I just got one of those big trifold poster boards from Dollar Tree, and I got character inspiration from online. Like I thought in my brain, what do I want these characters to look like? And I printed out those pictures of different people. They're real people, but obviously I'm not going to like talk about who they are here because they're not actually the people in my book. But just having that inspiration in front of me, printed out, these are the people I'm writing about. And then I wrote down first, middle, last name for each character. So that way I had that continuity. And then eye color, height, any detail that I write about as I'm writing, I mark it on that character board for that specific character as they develop. So that way, moving forward, if I'm like, shoot, what was Rhiannon's middle name? Let me look at this character board that I have right next to me where I have all of her characteristics being developed. And then,
I'm gonna say again that definitely it reminds me of my Hunt a Killer boards. Just like we're gonna figure out who did this and have all these strings like leading to different plot points and characters and things, and I'm just like, yeah, I've seen it, and that's what I think about every time I see your board.
You have to do it. It really helps. Even just remembering small details that you may not think you're going to need again, it ends up coming up again and you're like, dang it. And the last thing you want to do is have to go search through your entire document. Although, small tip, if you ever do and you use Word, just type Control F and then a little find option will show up and just type in the word that you're looking for. That has saved me many a time.
Or, you could just have your husband read it because he is into those details and will call you out in like 2.2 seconds.
He got to chapter 3 and was like, what are you doing to me? This is a lot. Like everything is happening. I'm like, I know. Love you. Just keep reading and help me out here. But one more tip that I will definitely give to beginner writers. So back up your work multiple times in multiple places. I lost my first draft of my first novel. The one that I started in that library with Brittany, I lost it because my computer, the laptop I was working on crashed and I hadn't emailed it to myself. I hadn't put it on a hard drive, a flash drive, nothing. It was just gone. And I was devastated. I cried. And I almost gave up, honestly. I was like, maybe this is a sign. I'm not supposed to be a writer. But, my friends and family really encouraged me to try again. And so I did. And honestly, I will say this, it was meant to happen because my second draft that I started ended up moving at a much better pace and was much better written than the one that I lost. So maybe that was God intervening, saying, girl, this ain't it. We need just crash this and get rid of it. But back up your work. Please get a portable hard drive, get a flash to back it up a million times. Send it to different email addresses that you trust, that are secure. Get that Google Drive account and save it there. Save it in multiple different avenues, so that way your bases are all covered, because you don't know what could happen, and you do not want to find yourself sad without that hard work that you just did. And do that every time. Like, if you finish writing a page, Control S, save. And what I do when I'm in the midst of writing, I'll email it to myself, and the subject of my email will be how many words there are. So that way I know this email and this file is, that's where I left off. And then I have my portable hard drive that I always back up on after I'm done with a writing session for the day.
So, wow. I really appreciate all of the tips that you've given today, Chantae. I just want to reiterate, guys, outline, save your work everywhere.
Yes.
And have a group of people around you that can be a support to you, right? We're glad that you didn't give up after you lost that first copy. And I'm excited because today I'm going to do a little reading from the first book in the Dreamweaver series. Chantae has selected that I read the intro, the prologue, and a little bit of the first chapter. So that's what we're going to be listening to today. And hopefully you guys enjoy. And if you do, then you can check her out. Her website will be in the show notes. So if you want to, get one of these books or get in on this series before book 3 comes out, I highly recommend it. And again, thank you so much for your time today, Chantae, and all of your words of encouragement and the tips that you've given to help all of us out.
Thank you for having me. Everybody, make sure you subscribe to Fictionary, the best podcast out there. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Well, I will definitely be talking to you later. And hopefully when the book 3 comes out, we'll have you back on the show so we can talk about it. Okay?
Absolutely.
Prologue, The Dreamweaver. Rhiannon felt as though the air was being pulled out of her lungs as she fell through complete darkness with no end in sight. She was falling so fast and so hard that she couldn't even let out the scream that was bubbling up within her as she panicked and looked around everywhere for something to hold. All sense left her mind, and all her training was forgotten as she put her arms out in front of herself protectively and accepted her impending doom. Use your training! A voice boomed out around her with no source apparent. My training, oh crap, I'm going to die! Rhiannon thought frantically as her velocity picked up and nausea swept over her. Get your control back, Rhiannon. You'll keep falling until you do. The disembodied voice rang out again, louder this time. Her descent already felt as though it had gone on forever, so she couldn't believe what the voice was insinuating. How do I make this stop? How do I gain control over this? She thought to herself, confused. Steadying her breath, Rhiannon began to assess the situation as best she could through her panic. I've already been falling a really long time. How is that even possible? It isn't. This isn't possible at all. Rhiannon's eyes shot open in surprise as she opened her arms outwards like a T and suddenly stopped falling and floated in place. This is a dream. Duh, Rhiannon. Much better. Now control your surroundings, the voice shouted. Feeling confidence flow through her, she began to construct a floor beneath her feet. Steadying herself on the asphalt, Rhiannon let whimsy take hold as buildings sprouted up all around her. She started creating a city made up of the most famous buildings from all over the world. The Eiffel Tower from Paris, Big Ben from London, the Burj Khalifa from Dubai, the Empire State Building from New York. Building after building, sprouted up from her imagination. Places she had always hoped to visit one day and photograph. Now they were here, and she could see them all in one shot. Perfect. Now destroy it all and wake up, the voice said coldly. Rhiannon hesitated, not wanting to see her creation destroyed before she even got to explore it. Now, the voice screamed, causing waves of vibration to go through the air. Flinching, Rhiannon took another deep breath and gave a small wave to the building she loved. Then she watched as they all crashed to the ground. As the last building fell, Rhiannon felt herself being pulled back towards the real world as she woke up, surrounded by her trainers, some looking pleased, some looking stern, and Lady Villagomez standing out most of all with a look of disappointment on her face. As Rhiannon sat up in the bed, the familiar pain in her spine radiated through her entire back. She groaned audibly as she noted that it seemed to be growing more intense with each training session. You need to be more focused. What you're facing is a life or death situation. You need to be aware that it's a dream the second you enter it. Lady Villagomez had come inches from Rhiannon's face as she lectured her again about the importance of her training. Rhiannon backed up a bit on the bed as she thought to herself, I should never have gone to that damn High Council meeting. All right, guys, that's where we're going to stop for now because I want you to go out and get this book. Again, it is The Dream Weaver, and it is written by Chantae Oliver. You can find her on Amazon. Check it out, guys. I'm going to have her details in the show notes. It's definitely worth the read. I hope that you're intrigued because I know I sure am. All right, until next time, guys, keep reading.